We've got lots of primetime games, barking dogs. Of course, the Steam report from VR, the Deli. That doorbell's ringing, and we got a stinky sandwich for you guys. Best bets up next on Bet on It. Kelly Stewart here, VR front and center, Marco D'Angelo on the right. Let's get right into these games. And I know there's Saturday primetime games, but we're going to skip over that. We're going to stick with our original three: Thursday night football, Sunday night football, and Monday night football. I'm going to go first on Thursday night. The Rams are a 1.5-point underdog at Seattle, 43.5. All right, guys, I'm going to tease the Rams. There's my handicap. No, the teasers have been doing very well, and that is going to be part of my play, but kind of have to wonder here. What did we see last week? Well, we saw the Rams having a monster second half led by Puka Nacua over the Lions. And what did Sam Darnold do? Ugh, woof. They kicked 6 field goals to beat a Phillip Rivers-led Colts team. Now they're a 1.5-point home favorite. Kind of makes you think this might be a buy low spot, if you will, on Seattle. We know the last time these two played, the Rams squeaked out a win at home, 21-19. But the real story was Seattle outgaining the Rams by 165 yards. They held 26-12 edge in first downs. But you want to know why they lost that game? Because Sam Darnold turned into a pumpkin and threw 4 interceptions, and they went 1 for 4 in the red zone. I don't think that's going to happen again. I do like Seattle here this week. And I'm going to throw away last week because, like Marco D'Angelo said, that was a nothing game. It was between big games. That game meant essentially nothing. So sure, they went through the motions as a 2-touchdown favorite, but a lot of teams are going to do that over the next couple of weeks. I think Marco's going to kind of break down some of that in his breakdown here as well. I think Sam Darnold has a better game, and I trust Seattle's defense to get the job done here at home on Thursday night in a very important NFC West game. I'll lay the 1.5 with Seattle. Let's just hope they can't win that game by more than a touchdown and we hit both sides. Marco D'Angelo is going to take over Sunday night football. New England is a 3-point underdog at Baltimore, 48.5. Marco, we were talking off air. A lot of us are kicking ourselves for not taking Baltimore last week. And boy, oh boy, did all the things that we said about that team just magically disappear. Everybody looked healthy. They played a hard-fought game. Now they're back here at home in a game that does mean something. So break this one down for us.
Yeah, Kelly. Well, I did have Baltimore last week, but what I was kicking myself about was I made it my 4% game of the week. It came very close to being a 5%, but we don't toss those out all the time, and that's why we have that 40-17 run on those. But the knee-jerk reaction this week is going to be everybody saw the New England game last week, and even though New England lost, they lost looking good when you look at the final score. It was a 35-31 shootout, and you say, hey, you know what? They're going to bounce back this week. They've been good all year. But yes, they've been good all year, but they haven't been believed. Even though they've had the best record in the AFC, everybody says it's a young team and they've played a soft schedule. And we saw Buffalo beat them last week. But the narrative is it was 21-0 New England. Buffalo came all the way back and won that game. I'll tell you exactly my thoughts as that game's going on. When New England went up 21-0, I was in a bar with a plate of chicken wings in front of me, and I literally had to wipe the wing sauce off to go to my iPad and see who they were playing next week. I said, I'm going to be going against New England next week because this was their statement game. This was to prove everybody we are the new kids on the block. We're the king of the AFC East, and I'm going to go against them. Saw they were playing Baltimore. I said, perfect. Then the collapse started. And I'm saying, oh, man, really? They're going to lose this game? They ended up losing it. So now I'm saying, well, I got to back off that. And then I go, oh, no, I don't. This is the poster child for lose the same game twice, because they were that close to having the division clinched last week. They beat Buffalo. They own the tiebreaker. They have a monster lead in the AFC East, and they would be looking at the number 1 seed. Instead, they lost that game. Buffalo's still there, and even though they'll probably still win the division, they got to have Buffalo living rent-free in their minds. I think they have the carryover this week. I think Baltimore will get the job done. Baltimore played a perfect game last week, probably their best game of the season. They took care of Cincinnati and the Joe Burrow. Remember, just a couple weeks ago on Thanksgiving night, Cincinnati went into Baltimore and beat them, but it was 5 turnovers that beat Baltimore that night. The next week, Baltimore lost to Pittsburgh in a key game, but they outgained Pittsburgh by over 100 yards, and they had a touchdown, controversial touchdown, reversed in the final 3 minutes. They very easily could have and should have beaten Pittsburgh. They got to take care of business, Baltimore, because they got to stay within 1 game of Pittsburgh to make that last game of the season when they go to Pittsburgh for all of the marbles to win the division, because that's the only way they're going to get in. They're not going to get in as a wild card. I like Baltimore here. They take care of business. Let's go ahead and lay the 3 with Baltimore. I think you see a big effort on Sunday Night Football.
VR, you've been doing some YouTube shorts, as we like to call them over here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, regarding power ratings here. So I'm generally curious how you have these 2 teams power rated. Well, I only care about one of them because I have them 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. Monday Night Football, San Fran -6 at Indianapolis, 46.5. You gave out Seattle last week because you said, hey, guess what? Daniel Jones and his leg are not worth this many points. Now we got the Niners, who struggle to put together back-to-back wins and are very frustrating on the road in basically a meaningless game.
Yep. I got San Francisco number 10 on my power ratings. I had Indianapolis number 13 on my power rating. So very close. And Indianapolis actually has the tougher strength of schedule and the more efficient offense. San Francisco's got the more efficient defense, and obviously not Phillip Rivers at quarterback. That's the situation we're looking at. Now, I gotta always let you know as before I start, here's where we're sitting at. College football 35-11 on bet on it. NFL 26-18-1. That's a combined 61-29-1 overall, 67% on bet on it over this season. For my TV game, I haven't gotten to the window yet. You know how I've done on these Sunday nights and Monday night footballs, 23-10 over the last 5 or 6 weeks. I've been able to do some solid confirmation based on how the market reacts, because these primetime games are different. You have one game attracting all the volume. It's not spread out. And because of that, books are forced sometimes to adjust for the risk, and that creates an inefficient number. Now, I'm going to look to the total in this game because we have some recency bias to take advantage of. First, you have San Francisco coming in off a 37-point offensive performance. In fact, they've scored 26 or more in 4 of their last 5 games. In fact, 5 out of their last 6 games. So the offense has been clicking, and they're a top 10 offense. Indianapolis also, like I said, top 10 offense. They were only able to put up 16 last week and actually haven't cracked 20 in 3 straight games. But the public's betting this one over, and I think the total's a little bit too high. And here's why. When you look at why Indy kept it close against Seattle, Rivers didn't have a phenomenal game. He just didn't lose it. He had a 73.1 QBR. They were able to rush the football 30 times. They handed the ball off for almost 100 yards. But it was the defense that held Seattle. They held them to 6 field goals, number one. So they kept them out of the end zone. They held them to 50 yards rushing. and only 260 yards passing. All right. So it was the defense of Indianapolis that knew they had to show up. And I think you're going to see the exact same type of effort from the Colts defense this week. And I don't think that San Francisco is going to be able to put up as many points. Flip side of that coin, like I said, Rivers didn't go out there. He wasn't phenomenal. He just didn't go out there and lose the game. Indy needs to try to keep this close with a chance to win at the end. The last thing you want is to get into any kind of shootout, any kind of position where your offense now has to play from behind. So I think a lot slower paced game from Indianapolis. And I like the under. It was 47 and a half. You saw some sharp money come in on under. I agree with that move. Again, haven't gotten to the window. Don't want to paint myself in a corner between now and Monday. But I do think there's some value on the under, especially when you look at what the totals have been for both these teams over the last couple of weeks. The market has adjusted and corrected itself. And I think now it's just going too high the other way.
All right. You mentioned some of these moves, and that's kind of what's made you famous here over at WagerTalk over the last few years, is really sharing these sharp plays. Tell everybody about the Steam Sheet VR, where they can get it, who has access to it, and of course, this week's Steam Report.
Yeah, all my subscribers already get it, the long-term guys, and I joke about it since Thanksgiving and since we came up with this, that we're now fishing with dynamite. Like, I'm able to really stay so selective with my premiums and still share a ton of solid, sharp, winning information that I actually want to see do well because it comes from the accounts I have a percentage of. But a lot of you guys are excellent in handicapping, have your own opinions, and this is going to help guide you. Perfect example. There's over 15 plus NFL moves in there already. It's Wednesday. Those have been in there since like Monday, Tuesday. So you get way ahead of the market, helps you confirm why things moved. And later I even go in there and update when we come back the other way, or if we even confirm one of them into a premium play. So, I mean, it's just so much information and almost priceless, to be honest with you. And we're giving it away to subscribers. It comes with your subscription for the long-term guys. And I try to put the package up every single day. Here's some of the Steam moves that are on there. Can't give them all because, like I said, there's 15 plus. Here's a couple sides and then a few totals. 105 Philadelphia minus 4.5 and 5. Obviously, the look ahead. 110 Saints minus 2.5 and minus 3. That was my 5% last week. Go Saints. 114 Baltimore. Marco touched on Baltimore. They're at that key number of 8 because they did attract sharp money at the opener. And then a double-digit dog for you, Tennessee, at plus 10.5. Then they hit it at the look ahead, obviously, down to 4.5 and 4. Total, go 117 under, look ahead 40.5 KC, Tennessee, then followed through and went under through 38.5. And then Dallas and the Chargers, looks like they're getting out ahead of the public here. 119 over 47.5 and 48.5 Chargers and Dallas. So that's some of the sharp stuff already for Sunday's action.
All right, let's get into some of those barking dogs. Of course, this is my favorite, but our dogs are pretty puny this week. Marco Barco, you got the smallest one, so you're going first.
Again.
Thanks, Kelly. I got the smallest one. All right. We're going to go with Arizona plus the 2.5 against Atlanta. Atlanta has the advantage of having 3 extra days because they did play on Thursday night last week. But here's the thing. This is a 5-9 team that has nothing to play for. I tell you over and over again, when you get to this time of the season, teams that are out of the playoffs are going to show up for 2 types of games. It's going to be a division game where they can play spoiler, or it's going to be a standalone TV game. Well, Atlanta checked both of those boxes last week on Thursday Night Football against division rival Tampa Bay, who was deadlocked with Carolina for the division lead. What did Atlanta do? They went into Tampa last week on primetime and beat the Bucs. This is a flat spot for Atlanta this week. They travel for a second week in a row. They have the number 1 seed in the NFC, the Rams, coming to their house next week. When? Oh, on Monday Night Football. Yeah, you want to talk about a sandwich? Well, it's a primetime sandwich from Thursday to Monday Night Football. This is just a bad spot for them. Arizona, I know, has looked terrible, but Arizona, they faced some good teams the last 2 weeks getting blown out. They faced the Rams and they faced Houston, one of the most explosive offenses in the Rams and one of the best defenses in the league, Houston. Jacoby Brissett, he's been putting up big numbers in the passing game. The running game has struggled, but in fairness, 3 of their last 4 games, they faced Jacksonville, the Rams, and Houston. All 3 of those teams are in the top 10 at stopping the run. I'm going to go ahead. Atlanta's bottom 10 stopping the run. I think Arizona will have a little more balance this week. They're going to get the job done. Give me Arizona plus the points. I don't think you're going to need the points. This is a dog that's going to bark.
All right, VR, you guys mentioned off air while we were getting ready to start the show that you both liked this team. And I thought, all right, last week, you and I both liked Green Bay, and they had many opportunities to win that game in Denver. But Denver keeps finding ways to win at home. Why are you stepping in front of this freight train?
In my defense, I did not release a premium to subscribers on Green Bay. I couldn't confirm it. Again, I was leaning that way. I like that side as also. I just couldn't pull the trigger. So I'm glad I was able to stay off it for my subscribers. And Denver got the win. That helps us and gives us that extra value on Jacksonville. Here's the bottom line. Let me do that power rating really quick and share that with you. These teams are very close. In fact, Jacksonville is 3 spots ahead of Denver on my power ratings, even though Denver has the better record. And on a neutral field, I would actually make Jacksonville about 1.5 favorites. I give Denver 2 points for home field advantage. So this one's a pick 'em with Denver, maybe a minus 115, 120 favorite at the most. So being able to get Jacksonville at +3, that key number of 3. In fact, I took it up to 3.5, gave it out to subscribers because it's discounted at 3.5 as a 4% move. And I am going to sprinkle that money line. I'm just waiting to get +150 because they got to win this game 4 out of 10 times. That's the break even. And that's definitely doable because I do think I have the better football team. Number 1, power rating wise, I have them above. And here's why. I have a top 10 offense going against offense that's not even in the top 20. More importantly, I have a defense in Jacksonville that's just outside the top 10 against a Denver defense that's just inside the top 10. But here's the biggest differentiator. Denver, only one team has a weaker strength of schedule than Denver. They had the 31st toughest strength of schedule. So you should be 12-2. That's it. The reason you're 6-7 and 1 ATS is because you haven't been able to outperform the betting market. The reason you haven't done that is because you're as phony as a $3 bill. You're a phony 12-2 football team with mediocre stats at best and a very, very easy strength of schedule that happens to win a bunch of one-score games. And eventually that luck runs out because it's just not sustainable. It's not. Jacksonville comes in here red hot. Usually, here's the thing. When a team wins 5 in a row, covers 5 in a row, comes in having scored 36 points, 48 points. Dude, I'm looking to fade them. 9 out of 10 times. They are so overpriced, I'm forced to fade them. No, because luckily that, who I just read off, was the Jacksonville Jaguars, who covered 5 straight, who just scored 84 points over their last 2 games and held their opponents to 39. Yeah, I get that team at a discount because the Denver Broncos have been so red hot, straight up, and they come off beating a very good Green Bay Packer team. The recency bias on my side. Give me the Jags plus the 3.5. That's a gift. Sprinkle the money line because they win the game.
All right, another team that I think is going to win the game, and that's why they're in the barking dog segment. But I also think they're going to win the NFC South. And if you guys remember, I told you back in August, everybody wants the Bucs. I said, no, give me the Carolina Panthers to win the NFC South. And it starts with this game right here because they play this week, and then they turn around and play each other again in Week 18. I guess the NFL couldn't have scripted it any better. That being said, Tampa Bay 1-5 straight up, 0-6 against the spread over the last 6 games. The bottom has fallen out. Sure, the Bucs have a little bit of extra time to prep for this one because they got their asses kicked by the Falcons on Thursday night. The Panthers also blew an opportunity to take the lead in the NFC South because they lost in overtime to New Orleans last week. But I do think this Tampa Bay team is just not built to blow anybody out. They're not built to win games by margin. They've only won 2 games by more than 3 points this season. And Bryce Young taking over that Panthers offense back in the middle of last season as a home underdog. 8-1 against the spread with 6 outright upset wins. That is the name of the game here in the Barking Dog segment. Give me Carolina on the money line. Maybe I should use them for Survivor this week, Marco D'Angelo. We'll see. Marco's Deli is up next, and Marco has been doing, well, nothing short of phenomenal. 40-30 on the season. If you're betting 1 unit, that's 10 units by just getting Marco's free Deli right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Marco, let everybody know what's going to be on deck for the Deli this week, when the video is going to come out, and who you like.
Yeah, it'll be out late on Thursday, and if you're WagerTalk Insider member, you'll get it before everybody else. So be sure to check out the WagerTalk Insider program. And Kelly, we're looking at this one here. We got a sandwich spot. We got the Giants in Minnesota. Minnesota's coming off back-to-back wins, the last one being on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. Now coming off that big Sunday Night Football win, they got to travel for a second week in a row. But look who they got on deck. They got the Lions. And Minnesota, disappointing season. They've had a bunch of injuries, but they can play spoiler next week to the Lions. And wouldn't they love to stick it to the Lions, the team that they battled right to the final week of the season last year for the division title? Yeah, they want to play spoiler next week. Washington, I know they have not looked good. They've lost 8 in a row. But in fairness, they've had their own injuries. They finally made it official. They're shutting Daniels down for the season. So we don't have to worry. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And if he does play, should he even be playing because he's playing hurt? We're going to get Marcus Mariota. But that 8-game losing streak, if the season ended today, 6 of those 8 teams in that 8-game losing streak would be in the playoffs. One of the other ones that's not currently in the playoffs would have been the Lions game, in which the Giants went to Detroit and did everything but win that game as they blew a big fourth quarter lead. This is a spot where I think they get right at home against Minnesota, and I trust Jackson Dart more than I trust J.J. McCarthy. I don't know what it is about McCarthy. Just the way he showboated going into for the touchdown. I mean, this is a guy that's done absolutely nothing so far in his young career. And man, is he cocky. I like Jackson Dart better. I am going to go ahead, take them, give me the points. Again, Minnesota. Their defense can carry them some, but they're not playing indoors this week. They're playing outdoors against the Giants. Cold weather. I'll go ahead, take the Giants for my sandwich spot. And of course, we're sprinkling on the Giants.
All right, let's get into those best bets. VR, you're going to be up first. And well, this one should come as no surprise to any of you guys. If you guys know VR, we're fading the narratives. We're bucking the trends. We're going straight power ratings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this play. Best bet record on the show is 6-9. Dog and best bet, I've usually tried to use premiums. Those two combined are 16-13 with a push. So that's 55%. pretty much what we should be in the NFL if you're winning. Again, so I don't want people to think like this is his best bet, because I'm firing another 5% on Sunday. That's the best bet. But I love this side. This is a 4% to subscribers, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They're giving it to us for free. How can I not bet it? Bottom line, we know what the look ahead was. Fortunately, John Murray and the guys over at Westgate don't keep it a secret. They let us know well in advance. And they had this one up at minus 10.5. That's 7.5 point difference. And we get to go through the key number of 7. We get to go through the key number of 6, down to 3, through a 4 even. And why? Why? Because Mahomes isn't playing? Well, what do we know? We got to look at what the drop-off is from number 1 to number 2. Like if it was Tom Brady in his prime, but behind him was Rodgers in his prime, what's the drop-off, right? So you got to compare the number 1 to who's stepping in. And value over replacement player is also a very high correlation to winning, just like passing success rate. It's not as high of a correlation, but it's up there. It's a very good method if you're able to find those overvalued, undervalued spots. And here's why this is so undervalued. Because when you look at Mahomes, okay, again, it's not a knock on Mahomes. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and we know that with everything he's done. But when I look over his last 10 games, his QBR is 89.6. Now, that's over this season, okay? So who's coming in for him? Minshew, right? Minshew has a lot of experience, a lot of starting experience, been at multiple teams. And let's look at his QBR rating, right? He hasn't started. So we got to go past another year. Why? Go back to 2024, 25 in Vegas, an 81, 23, 24, 84.6. I go back to 22, 23, 83.4. I go back a little further, 104.8. Like they're all up there above 80s. So where's the drop off in quarterback based on statistics of Mahomes this year compared to a big sample size for Minshew? It isn't that big. And I expect, again, there's going to be a drop-off. I'm not saying Minshew is Mahomes or is playing as well as Mahomes, is going to play as well as Mahomes, can do what Mahomes can do. What I'm saying is production-wise, over this last 10 games of this season, it hasn't been the Mahomes that's the Hall of Fame Mahomes. That's just the truth. That's why Kansas City's not making the playoffs this year. So I don't think the drop-off's warranted, kind of like I talked about last week in Indianapolis. This is the Tennessee Titans we're talking about, okay? They have 0 home wins, 0. That's how many times they've beaten a team at home, okay? They, statistically, 20, there's only 2 teams worse than them offensively and 2 teams worse than them defensively in efficiency. Now, granted, they had the toughest schedule in all of the NFL, but they've gotten beaten down because of that schedule. I look at Kansas City, it's not the offense that's been their main weapon. In fact, they're not even in the top 15 in efficiency offensively. It's the defense that's top 5. And that's what this Tennessee offense has to face, a top 5 defense that knows their starting quarterback's not there. You think, and okay, and you're going to say, all right, well, that's the drop-off. Maybe you're right, but what about the motivation, Ace? What about the motivation? KC's playing for nothing. What's Tennessee playing for? To go to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs? Are we serious? The pride of not losing to Tennessee is what Kansas City's playing for. Not losing to the Tennessee Titans, not allowing Tennessee to get their first home win against Kansas City just because their quarterback's not playing. I could go on and on and on and on for reasons why that's so stupid to think, okay, now because they're not making the playoffs, they have nothing else to play for. Well, fortunately, they're playing a Tennessee team that had nothing to play for since week 3 of the season. So let's put that nonsense to bed. And again, KC's got a top 15 strength of schedule. KC -3, that's a gift. 4% of subscribers already. I don't think that 3 will be there come Sunday. So if you agree with me, you may want to get down.
All right, Marco D'Angelo. Let me know what you got going on over at WagerTalk.com and tell me why you like the Lions to bounce back this week.
All right. Well, I'll promote for Ace as well. We both got our specials going this week. Same deal we ran last week. The response was great. And if you haven't taken advantage, we're giving you a second chance to do so. You can pick up either VR or myself. Secret link for me, it's wt.buzz/Marco365. For Ace, just do the same thing, except /Ace365. You can pick up a full season, 365 days for just $11.88. Regular price is $19.99. We're doing a special for you guys that are loyal viewers of Bet On It. For me, for this game, Kelly, I'm looking at Detroit, and this is a bad matchup for the Steelers. They don't have the luxury of facing a warm weather team in the frigid cold of Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football like they did last week. They got to travel to play Detroit, who is coming off a loss. They're going to be playing in perfect indoor conditions on a fast track with that Detroit offense. The Detroit offense is explosive, as we know. They can both run and pass the football, which is going to exploit a Steeler defense that is still bad. I know they look good on Monday Night Football, but come on, let's be honest. What were the Miami Dolphins doing in that game? They were absolutely lifeless. Even whenever they got a couple scores in the fourth quarter, they were going like they were ahead instead of behind. They weren't going with a hurry-up offense, anything that it was just a bad performance by the Dolphins. And the week before, when Pittsburgh beat Baltimore outgained them in that game by over 100 yards. And we talked about that controversial touchdown that was overturned on Baltimore. This is really a meaningless game for the Steelers. And what I mean by that is the Steelers have a one-game lead over Baltimore. By winning on Monday night, it guarantees the Steelers, no matter what they do the next 2 weeks, that the final game of the season is going to be for the division, at worst, for the division title. Now, obviously, if Pittsburgh wins a game along the way and Baltimore drops one, then they'll have a 2-game cushion. But this is of the 3 games they have left, traveling on a short week. They got Cleveland next week, and then that showdown with Baltimore the following week. Not a good setup for them. Detroit has scored 34 or more in 4 of their last 6 games. Pittsburgh's going to try to run the football, shorten the game. But what happens when you fall behind by 2 scores? You got to abandon the running game. And then that's going to make Pittsburgh one-dimensional. And that offensive line is still not great. And Aaron Rodgers will be under pressure if Detroit decides to blitz numerous times. I just don't like this setup for Pittsburgh. And, look at Detroit. What have they done the last 10 games? Win, lose, win, lose. Well, if you follow that pattern that has happened for 10 straight weeks, this is the win week. I'll go ahead and take Detroit and lay the 7. I would go ahead and grab that 7 because I think this could get to 7.5 come Sunday. Go ahead and lay it with the Lions.
All right. We started trending upwards on our best bets, and then we came crashing down last week. So we're just going to not overthink it this week, and we're going to lay 14.5 points with the Houston Texans. I know. I'm not usually some chalk-eating weasel here, but what is happening to the Raiders cannot stop. This momentum, right? Just keep going. They get that crazy backdoor cover against the Broncos, then they go on the road and just get absolutely blown out in Philadelphia. They have lost 8 straight games and now have to face the Houston Texans defense. Yeah, this is not going to be good. It does not matter what the Raiders try to do. This team has cashed it in for the season. And let's say this is about as short as the amount of time the Raiders offense spent on the field on Sunday. A very short synopsis. So I'm going to try to find you guys some more reasons why we cannot bet the Raiders from the gold sheet. Las Vegas is now responsible for two of the worst offensive games in the NFL over the last decade. And oh, by the way, they happen to have occurred in the last 2 months. On October 19th, the Raiders generated 95 total yards and got 3 first downs against Kansas City. They were on the field for only 17 minutes and 52 seconds in that game and went 0 for 7 on third down. I thought it couldn't get any worse. Well, guess what? They played the Eagles last week, where they finished with 75 total yards and 1.8 yards per play. Houston, 6-game winning streak. They've covered 5 of those 6. We're laying it here with the Houston Texans to blow out the Las Vegas Raiders. All right, guys, that was your NFL edition of Bet On It. From myself, Marco D'Angelo, Gianni the Greek, we'll see you guys for week 16. I cannot believe we're this far along in this NFL season, up next week. And of course, if you guys are looking for more stuff on the college football playoff, look no further than right here. Also, we'll see you guys Saturday and Sunday for WagerTalk's last call. Gianni the Greek, Marco D'Angelo. We've got a star-studded lineup.
Who's hungry? The Deli's open. Hey guys, Marco D'Angelo here for another edition of Marco's Deli. I appreciate you guys stopping by to hang out with me for a little bit as we preview some NFL games for this week's slate. And of course, I always appreciate you guys leaving those comments and the thumbs up. It really helps the channel out. Let's get into this week's Deli as we've got several plays for you here. We're going to look at 3 different situations this week in the NFL. And let's get it started with the Dallas Cowboys playing host to the LA Chargers. Now, this is a major sandwich spot for the Chargers as they are coming off 2 monster wins in a row. They beat Philadelphia 2 weeks ago on Monday Night Football, then had to come back on a short week and play Kansas City on the road, got the win, eliminated their arch rival out of the playoffs. So that was a very satisfying win for them, as we know the Chiefs have been the dominant force in the AFC West and, of course, basically the entire AFC over the last 5 years. The Chargers, with that win, solidified their playoff spot, but they've got a huge game next week. It's with Houston, and Houston is the only other team really that is sitting with them in that spot of the top 3 for the wild card. Right now, the Chargers have the best wild card record, but Houston is the only other team that has a shot at passing them, depending on what happens with that game next week. So I think coming off the 2 big games last week, and in the last 2 weeks, I should say, and Houston on deck, this is a flat spot. And if you watched that game against Kansas City last week, that was the hardest hitting game I've seen all season. The Chargers were just lighting up the Kansas City receivers, especially when they were coming across the middle. So off that physical game, playing back-to-back weeks on the road, I think is a bad spot for them. Let's go ahead, take Dallas and lay the 2 points. All right, next one that we're going to take a look at is going to be Atlanta at Atlanta at Arizona. We're going to take a look at the Arizona side in this one. Atlanta has the advantage of 3 extra days to prepare, but really, because they played on Thursday night last week, but at 5-9, what are they playing for? They really have no reason to get excited here, especially traveling west to Arizona to play a team that can't get out of their own way right now. I always say that teams that are out of the playoffs, that they're not going to show up except for 2 types of games. It's either going to be a division rivalry game where they got a chance to play spoiler, or it's going to be a standalone TV game. Well, if you look what Atlanta did last week, they did both of those things. They played on Thursday Night Football, so it was a primetime standalone game, and they did it against division rival Tampa Bay and upset Tampa Bay in the role of underdog. Now they got to go on the road and play an Arizona ball club. This is a spot where I just don't see Atlanta showing up. Look at who they play next week. This is a bad spot for them, is they've got the number 1 seed currently in the NFC, the LA Rams, coming to their building. So coming off playing division rival Tampa, and you got the Rams on deck, that in itself is a big sandwich spot. But what makes it even better is it's a primetime sandwich spot. They played on Thursday night. Guess when they play the Rams? Monday Night Football. Yeah, this is a horrible spot for Atlanta, a team that has nothing to play for. Arizona, I get it's been a bad year, but when you've had a long losing streak like they've had, they want to get a win. I think they get it done. I'll go ahead and take Arizona plus the 2.5 against Atlanta. Now, before we get to the last game here on the Deli, I want to tell you what's going on over at WagerTalk. Of course, we still have the Weekend Warrior package that's been up every week. You can check that out. But, guys, I got a special offer for you. We ran this last week, and the response was tremendous. I want to give you guys a second chance to take advantage of it. My regular price for a full year of service, that's every play I release, is $19.99. Because you guys, we appreciate you watching Marco's Deli, watching the Bet On It show with me. I want to give you guys a special secret link. You can get my full season, 365 days, if you go to wt.buzz/Marco365. That's Marco365, and you'll be able to get the entire season, 365 days, for just $1,188. That's every play, every sport. Bonus plays, like whenever we do some horse racing specials, you'll get that as well. And guys, we're just rolling right now. Last 7 weeks, 49 days, 76-49 for our clients. That has resulted in a profit of over $7,200 for our clients. And you know what our 5% plays have done. Those are included in this package. Remember, every one of those 5% plays sell for $35 by themselves. We are 40-17 since February of 2024 with those plays. You'll get all of those in every play I have, coming off a 3-0 sweep on Wednesday night, 2-1 on Tuesday night. We just keep adding to the profits. Join me for this special package. All right, guys, let's get to that last play. And we're going to take a look at Jacksonville at Denver. Now, I realize Denver's red hot. Can't get any hotter. They've won 11 in a row. But when you look at those 11 wins, 9 of the 11 wins have been by 1 score or less. That means 8 points or less. If you look even deeper, you'll find that 6 of those 11 wins have been by 3 points or less. Last week's 8-point win over Green Bay is misleading. Green Bay was up 9 points in the third quarter and was driving, about to blow the game wide open before Jordan Love threw his first of 2 interceptions. That interception turned the game around because not only did it stop that drive for Green Bay, but Denver ended up turning it around and going down the field and scoring. Completely changed the dynamics of that game. When you look at Denver during this winning streak, they have been held to 100 yards rushing, under 100 yards rushing in 4 of their last 5 games. That's a big problem this week, as Jacksonville has held 7 of their last 9 opponents to 89 or fewer yards. I don't trust Bo Nix if he has to end up throwing the football too often. If the running game's not successful, that's what's going to end up happening here. And lastly, let's look at the scheduling spot. This is a sandwich spot. I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but listen to what I'm looking at. They played Green Bay last week. That was a huge game. Green Bay, big name in the NFC. I realize that they've got a big game this week with Jacksonville because Jacksonville is a fellow AFC team that is in first place in their division. But when you look at the name Green Bay, you look at the name Jacksonville, and then you look at the name of who they play next week, Kansas City. Yes, I realize Kansas City is eliminated from the playoffs. Yes, I realize Patrick Mahomes is done for the season, but it's still Kansas City, division rival, the team that has beaten up on Denver in the rest of the division, the rest of the AFC for the last 5 years. It's just name association, Green Bay, Jacksonville, Kansas City. This is the soft spot in that trio of games. I'm going to go ahead, take Jacksonville. I don't think they're getting enough respect here. This defense has quietly played very well this season, especially against the run. I'm going to take the points with Jacksonville, look for the letdown on Denver, and that is our final sandwich spot for this week. Guys, good luck with the 3 plays. You want to get all of my plays, head on over to WagerTalk. Check out one of the packages we got available. Bowl games off and running, 9-4 last year with the bowl games. We're 2-0 this week already with the bowls, and we've got the playoff games and the rest of the bowls on tap this week, and plenty of action in all of the sports, NBA basketball, college basketball, and hockey, as well as college and pro football. Till next week, guys, good luck. Let's eat good at the Deli. I'll see you next week, and let's cash some tickets, guys. Appreciate you stopping by. I'll see you next week.
Welcome to your NFL TNA. That, of course, stands for Trends and Angles. It is Thursday, December the 18th. I am Ralph Michaels, and this is the Wager Talk NFL Bet On It TNA segment. We're going to start with 2 charts, looking at how teams have done versus division and non-division, both against the spread and over-under. We have 7 systems for you today, 3 over-under systems, and we're going to finish with a system that is 94.4% against the spread since 1991. Let's get to it. Let's take a look at chart number 1. Now, both this ATS chart and the over-under chart will be posted on my X account. Just follow me at CalSportsLV. It'll allow you to do a deeper dive. So you see, the green chart shows ATS records versus division and non-division foes. On the left-hand side of the team names, if they were a division favorite and a division dog. On the right-hand side, non-division favorites and non-division dogs. Well, a couple that jump out to me, take a look at the Bears. Non-division, they're 4-1 against both. 8-2 non-division games. You look at division teams, look at the Chargers. 4-0-1 against the spread versus division foes. So let me run back the top, the best and the worst for each of the categories. Division favorites, Green Bay 3-0, the Chargers 2-0-1, Jacksonville and Seattle both 2-0 ATS, Carolina, Atlanta, and Denver both 0-2. Division dogs, Dallas, the Chargers, Miami, and Carolina all 2-0. The Jets are 0-4, Arizona and Tennessee 1-4 against the spread. Non-division favorites, the Rams running away with it, 8-1, 89%. Non-division favorites, San Fran and Detroit, 5-1 ATS. On the negative side, the Jets 0-2, Green Bay 2-8, Dallas 1-4, and the LA Chargers 2-6. Non-division dogs, Denver 3-0, the Jets 7-1, Indy and Chicago 4-1. The bad division dogs, non-division dogs, Baltimore 0-2, New Orleans and Washington 2-6. Take a look at the Jets. You see 1 red and 1 highlighted black. In non-division games, if you bet the underdog when the Jets are playing, you are 9-1, 90% this season. Let's move over. You see the blue chart is over-under records. Same setup. On the left-hand side, if they're a division favorite or division dog. The right-hand side, non-division favorites and non-division dogs. Division favorites, the best over-under teams, the best over teams, I should say, Miami and Detroit, 3-0. Carolina and Jacksonville 0-2 over-under. Division dogs, top over teams, Jacksonville, Washington, and San Francisco, both 2-0. And 4 teams are 0-2 over-under as a division underdog. Non-division favorites, the Browns. The Browns defense, when they're a non-division favorite, they're 3-0 over-under. And Kansas City, on the negative side, 2 overs and 6 unders when they're a non-division favorite. And finally, non-division dogs. Dallas, 5 games, 5 overs. Tennessee, 7-2 to the over. The Jets, 6-2 to the over. Non-division dogs to the unders. Houston, 1-3. Cleveland, 2-5. Look at the difference. Cleveland's a non-division favorite. They're 3-0 against the spread. When they're not the better team, they're 2-5 over-under. Excuse me, Cleveland 3-0 over-under non-division favorites, 2-5 as a non-division dog. We don't have that many over-unders, but there's actually 3 trends that made sense, had good records, and I think are legitimate reasons to look at these teams to go under the total. First, if you have a team that was a double-digit favorite and they covered that game, and now they are playing a division foe and their win percentage is 60% or higher. So the Eagles are off a win as a double-digit favorite. They covered that game. They have a win percentage over 60%, and they, of course, are playing a division foe in Washington this week. Well, those division teams, 13-9 ATS, 59.1%, but also 17-5, 77.3% to the over. So system 1 likes Philadelphia, but the real system is Philadelphia and Washington over the total. System 2, if a road team is off a road win, the opponent was also on the road last week, and the lines are between 3.5. So the road team is from plus 3.5 to minus 3.5, meaning we have a competitively priced game. Well, in those games with both teams off a road game last week, and the away team also off a win, the over-under 16-39, 29.1% over-under, or 71% to the under. System 2 says Atlanta and Arizona under the total. Well, what happens if we have a game with a total under 38 and the home team is either an underdog or a very small favorite? Low total, home team, underdog, small favorite, like Tennessee. Those teams, 13, 29-2 over-under, that is 31%, or 69% to the under. Our third over-under system says to take Tennessee and Kansas City under the total. 4 more ATS systems now to finish off this video. Before I get to that, I want to remind you guys, I was number 1 in the bowls. Last season, I went 12-3. I've only had 1 bowl so far. It was a small 2% play. It did go down last night. But again, I do love the bowls. I do a lot of reading. With this new bowl age, you need to make sure you're informed. My NFL continues to just roll. My teasers, 78% the last 2 years. Make sure you check it out. You can get 10 days of service. Folks, that means you're getting this week of football and next week of football for only $99. Plus, you'll get any NBA, college basketball, or NHL I do. Just head to wt.buzz/RM. Take advantage, 10 days, $99, and get 2 full weekends of football, plus the biggest week of college football bowls as well. What a deal. As we're winding down the last few weeks of this regular season, TNA videos. I do want to thank you for all of you who've tuned in each and every week. I appreciate all the comments. If you are not yet subscribed to WagerTalk TV, what are you waiting for? Over 300,000 people subscribed among their social media networks. And if you learned one thing in this video, all I ask is this: hit that like button and leave a comment. It helps our algorithms and it helps us to continue to do all this great free content for you, the WagerTalk viewers. Well, let's get to our 4 ATS systems. First, this is game number 4, so we got the first few games out of the way. You're off a win as a dog. You're at home. And both teams have a win percentage over 70%. So, pretty simple. What home team is off a win as a dog? And both teams have great winning percentages? That would be the Denver Broncos and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Broncos are at home, and the home team in this situation, going all the way back to 1996, 30, 13, and 1, 69.8% against the spread. ATS System 1 says to take the Denver Broncos. System number 2. We have a home team that was at least +1 turnover each of the last 2 games. That's simple, guys. A team positive turnover ratio the last 2 games and at home. Those teams have gone 90 and 48 with 3 pushes, 65.2% against the spread. It applies to 4 teams this week: Seattle, Tennessee, Detroit, and Houston. Once again, home teams, simple, back-to-back games, positive turnover margin. ATS system number 2, Seahawks, Titans, Lions, and Texans. System number 3. We have a division road team off a loss as a favorite. The line is they are either a favorite or a dog to +6. And they have a lower winner percentage than their opponent. So they're trailing in the division standings. Well, that road team in this situation, looking up to their division foe, the Green Bay Packers, teams in this situation, 83, 45, and 4, 64.8% of the time. ATS system number 3 says to back the Green Bay Packers. Folks, since 1991, this has happened only 19 times, and it happened earlier this year, and it cashed. Teams off a shutout win, and they allowed under 100 yards. Yeah, can you believe 2 teams this season scored under 100 yards? Philadelphia is the team we're talking about. The system, 17, 1, and 1, 94.4% of the time. ATS system number 4 says to back the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks so much. I'll be back next week, pre-Christmas. I'll probably have the video up on Tuesday for your Christmas week NFL TNA. Thanks for tuning in. Smash that like button, leave a comment, and make sure you're following WagerTalk TV. Have a great week of bowl season and the NFL.
All things college football playoff. We've been snoozing through some of these boring bowl games, and now time to get to the good ones. Up next on Bet on It. Welcome in to Bet on It. Kelly Stewart here. Marco D'Angelo front and center. Gianni, the Greek, over to my right. We're going to talk all things college football playoffs and, of course, get you those best bets here at the end of the show. Quick show today, but we're going to be back every week breaking down each round of the college football playoffs and, of course, including those bowl games we actually are considering betting because we know some of these have been stinky at best. That being said, we're going to get right into it. Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern, ABC, number 10, Miami, 3.5-point road underdogs at number 7, Texas A&M. Total 51.5. And I know a lot of you guys are going, Kelly, you missed the Friday college football playoff game. Don't worry, we're going to get to that in the best bet segment here at the end of the show. I got stuck with this game, and that's because I let the other guys choose first. And here's the reality. I tweeted, I hope they let Miami into the college football playoff so I could bet against them. And a couple weeks before that, I said, I can't wait to bet against this fraudulent A&M team in the college football playoff. And here we are. And now I got to break down this game and give you guys a side or a total. So we're going to get right into it. Aggies off that loss to Texas there in the season finale. But remember, they were -7 in the turnover differential throughout the season. So there was a couple other games where they were, we'll call it on the ropes. We can argue maybe the Notre Dame game went their way. And of course, that crazy South Carolina game where they came back from 30 points down to win it there at home. But I will say they were better in EPA per play and net success rate than Miami. And we already know they have the better coach here in Mike Elko. Here's the one thing about the coaching staff. And I will say this, Colin Klein now headed to Manhattan, Kansas to be the new head football coach there. Their defensive coordinator headed to Kentucky. Lots of people from that staff are going to be poached. But Mike Elko's press conference yesterday said, hey, we are focused. We have guys here dedicated to finish the job. So that is a good thing, that even though typically when your coach leaves is a bad thing. That being said, let's get back into Miami, who won its last 4 games just easy, right? Almost by 30 points per game. And this is the only time that they've been an underdog all season long outside of that opener where they were a small home underdog versus A&M. And I will say this. Since the beginning of ACC play last season, the Hurricanes have played 9 games away from home, 5-4 straight up, 3-6 against the spread. Remember, this team did not leave the state of Florida until November 1st. I mentioned the coaching advantage for the Aggies. I also think that they're getting some positive news here. Le'Veon Moss, Bryce Anderson, Scooby Williams, those guys all missed multiple weeks there at the end of the regular season. So keep an eye out to see if everybody's going to be a little healthier and playing. Mike Elko, again, in that press conference, said the roster was great and everybody is trending in the right direction. Hey, look, again, I've got the better offense. I've got the better coach and coaching staff. I've got a healthier team. And I got to lay just a little bit more than a field goal with a team who is not that bad at home. I'm going to lay it with A&M. That was a long-winded way of saying I'll take the Aggies so that I can bet against them in the second round of the college football playoff. Next up, we're going to Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on TNT. Number 20, Tulane is a 17.5-point underdog at Ole Miss, 56.5. VR, I know we can argue till we're blue in the face about whether these game of 5 teams deserve to get in. It just sucks. We already saw this game once this year. 45-10 was the final, but Ole Miss not as lucky as A&M. Lane Kiffin's gone. He took a bunch of guys with him. Kind of break down this round of the college football playoff. Is there any value on betting Tulane because Ole Miss has got a skeleton crew of a coaching staff?
Yeah, excuse the look. As you can see, it's just been a very busy couple of weeks, and we produced a lot of profit. And I've gone through and I've power rated every single bowl and playoff game. I've got the true ranking based on power ratings, offensive ranking, defensive ranking, strength of schedule, all of that for every single matchup. It took a lot of work. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to make a lot of money because there's a lot of mistakes as far as the betting line goes. And it's not a mistake on the sportsbook's part. It's a mistake on the betting market's part, meaning the narrative that's out there, the books have no choice but to put so many inefficient numbers out there so they can manage risk correctly. This isn't one of those games. I haven't gotten to the window with this game. Again, with the TV games, we get 2 or 3 to choose from. I haven't bet any of the ones that we had to choose from, okay? But this is what sticks out here. Number one, we're seeing an adjustment off that first game of about a touchdown. All right. And that one was in Mississippi. Now, I get it. They're playing in the state of Mississippi again, so you can slightly give them that home field advantage. But I think the adjustment isn't warranted as great as it is. Bottom line, we know Tulane's phony. They're not the 20th best team in the country, but that's just how the rankings work. In fact, Tulane isn't in my top 50 as far as power rating goes, where Ole Miss, they're right around where they should be. They're sixth in rankings, power rating wise. I have them ninth in my power ratings. But when I do the math, it only comes out to a little less than 2 touchdowns. And I don't think that the home field advantage, if there is any, or the fact that they already played and Mississippi beat them, warrants those extra few points. I'm also seeing nothing but one-sided public money on Mississippi, as if this one's automatic. But I learned a lot from Marco. And one of the things when it comes to rematches are the team that had the blowout, like, what do you change? What do you fix? What do you do in practice all week? Just go out there. Let's do the same thing. The team that got blown out, now they have some things to fix. They have some adjustments to make. And I think you're going to see that from Tulane. For them, this is a free roll. Let's face it. They're not supposed to be amongst these teams. And I don't think there's going to be any pressure on them. All the pressure was on Mississippi. Again, they're a top 10 offense, top 10 defense. I can't knock Mississippi. This is not a fade of Mississippi. It's more of a fade of the betting market that I think's overvaluing that first matchup between the two. Again, hard to argue, hard to defend Tulane that doesn't have a top 50 defense or offense, more or less. But I do think it's a lot of points. So TB game, I'll take the 17.5 with Tulane.
All right, Marco, same question for you, but regarding James Madison, they are a 21.5 point underdog. They're the number 24 team in the country, but getting no respect. At number 5, Oregon, 50.5 Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. on TNT. I'm kind of thinking you're going to give me a similar answer here because that is the reality. You're only going to get one-way action, and it's going to be all on Oregon.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Kelly. And one thing to remember as we get in here, and everybody that is, crying of who got in and who didn't get in, and I'm on the bandwagon that, yes, Notre Dame should have been in. In my opinion, the team that shouldn't have been in was Alabama, but that's a different story. It is what it is with these two teams, the non-power 5, you got to have something. And I realize if you want the playoffs to be the 12 best teams, then that's the way you got to do it and go with the 12 best teams. But they have it so that they're still trying to make the regular season mean something. If not, we're going to ruin conference football, in my opinion, with the championship games and everything else. So here we are. We have James Madison, and everybody automatically assumes that these teams are going to get blown out. Just remember this with the new playoff format, okay? What is the motivation to blow these teams out? You got to come back and play the next week. We're done with the regular season where sadly it was a factor in a lot of games down the stretch where teams were on that fringe of getting in or getting left out that they thought about style points. You know what? Oregon just has to win by a point and they advance. Do I want to take James Madison in this game? If I had to, that's the way I probably would lean because this is a team that has played good defensively this year. But I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to look at this game and I'm going to look at the total. Now, this total has moved some already. It opened up at 50.5, which was too high. We saw the market adjust. Then we heard some weather reports where there's supposed to be some rain Saturday, possibility of rain in Oregon, Eugene. It's always going to be cold. So we saw this line come down to 47.5. I'm still good with taking the under here, but at the end, I'll tell you, wait to do it because I think when we get to game day, and as VR always tells you, the public's going to get involved on game day, they're not betting the under. Why they're not betting the under? Because you're going to look and see James Madison averaged 37 points a game this year. Oregon averaged 38 points a game this year. There's no way they're betting an under 47.5. they're going to bet over. So it's going to creep back up. But the difference in this game is both of these teams do play defense. And James Madison allowed just 16 points a game this year. Oregon, just 15 points a game. Both teams have stellar running games, which means you're going to see the clock moving. The teams are going to be running the football. Both are very good at stopping the run, which means it's going to take longer for them to migrate up and down the field with these teams. And as I said, Oregon has no need to pile it on. If they got a lead, they'll be content running the football in the second half. They want to get in and get out and move on to next week to their next opponent in the playoffs. So, and mention, look at the injury reports. Oregon's got some injuries, banged up, let's put it that way, at the wide receiver position. Also, they lost both of their coordinators. That's got to affect things a little bit as well. I'm going to go ahead, look at under. Here's another stat for you on James Madison. Nobody has scored more than 28 points on them this year. And the one team that did score 28 points was Louisville early in the season. They held 8 of their 12 opponents to 14 or fewer points. Give me under 47.5, but wait till Saturday to bet it. I think you're going to see the line tick back up.
All right, VR, before we get into your best bets, I have a question. So those are both two sides I agree with you guys on. As a contrarian, I think it's a lot of points, and the bookmakers know that they're only going to get one-sided action. So I'm in several contests over on Splash, and I'm wondering, if I want to get ahead, I have to use those teams, right?
Yeah. Again, you got to go opposite now at that point.
You're like I'm like 5, 6, 7 games behind. That's a way to get possibly both dogs cover. I'm doubling up, and that gives me 2 spots because they're both going to, assuming the guys ahead of me are both going to take the favorites.
Yes. And you have to do that. Just like sometimes you got to take the worst of the stale line in contest when you know everyone's taking the stale line. That happened to me once when I was at right there in the money in the super contest. And I went with a team that was opposite the stale line. So I was taking the worst of it, knowing I would jump a few positions. It worked against me, and I ended up not cashing. But had it worked my favor, I would have jumped up like 4, 5, 6 positions as far as cashing. And it was worth the risk for me. Yeah, I think that's the way to do it, especially the position you're in. You know what I mean? Like you make a good living, you have money. Like it's not your life.
I want to win, but yes, like you got to do something that's advantageous.
You don't have to hedge. You could try to win the pot. You're not just trying to make the money. You're trying to get in the money. You're trying to win it. And if you're trying to win it, that's the way to do it.
Okay. All right. I got some pondering to do between now and kickoff on Friday. VR, give me your best bet for the bowl games leading up until Christmas. We're going to kind of try to section these out if you guys missed last week's show. But before you do, let me know what you got going on over at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, it's that time of the year, man. There's just so much value over the next couple weeks. I said it since Thanksgiving. That there's going to be a lot of opportunities to make money. And so far, so good over the last 30 days. Number 1 in profit. We finished college football number 1 in profit overall. Both seasons have been profitable for me historically. So I'm really excited about the next couple of weeks, but we can't overlook college basketball, NBA, NHL, 2-0 yesterday in NHL. Like I'm getting a lot of good information. Partner up for the year with me. That's the way to do it. It's the cheapest deal we have. And yeah, 2026 is going to be a really good year. Oh, NFL this week. Package isn't up yet because another 5% is coming. We hit last week's. This week's a really good one. Best bet. I'm going to have to, I have a lot of best bets on these bowl games. But let me give you one that the public's on. So if you agree with me, you probably want to get down because I don't think this line's going to be there for all that long. And that's Minnesota over New Mexico. Bottom line, when I look at this matchup, you look at the records, you look at New Mexico, it's a 9-3 team, very respectable record. More importantly, they did really well ATS also. Not so for Minnesota. Not only were they 7-5, but they were 3 games below 500 ATS. So they underperformed against the betting market. But here's what we know. When you break these two teams down as far as power rating goes, I have Minnesota that's in my top 50 I have New Mexico that's not even in the top 80. So even though they have the much better record, they're not even in the top 80. And here's what I have for New Mexico. They have offensively, they're not in the top 80. Defensively, they're not in the top 90. Strength of schedule, they're not in the top 80. So again, they're a 9-3 team that is not in the top 80 or 90 in strength of schedule, offensive or defensive efficiency. When I look at Minnesota, all right, Minnesota, like I said, barely in my top 50, but top 60 offense, top 40 defense. That's a big jump from the New Mexico side, and then also a top 50 strength of schedule. So they just had better stats everywhere with a much tougher strength of schedule. Again, I don't want to spend time wasting your time with the X's and O's and the matchups and the names and blah, blah, blah. I've made a ton of money strictly off these power ratings in college football. That's what we're going to stick to throughout these bowl games because I trust them. Again, the other day, the market went against us and it didn't matter. We bet our side, and it turned out well. So let's go with Minnesota. I bet them on the money line at -130. Good to about -140, 145. Otherwise, just lay the 2.5.
All right, Marco D'Angelo, you have a best bet here. And this team was on my list, so you got me a little intrigued. Maybe I should get to the window with them. Give me your best bet for this week in college football. And then when you get done, let me know what you've got going on over at WagerTalk.com.
All right, Kelly, we're taking a look at Washington State and Utah State. And we always talk about in these non-playoff bowl games, you got to look for where the motivation is, what team's happy to be there or not. And personally, I think the wrong team's favorite. Let's start with that. I think Washington State should have been the favorite. Washington State has had the us against the world feeling for the last 2 years. Why? Well, them and Oregon State were left as Pac-12 orphans last year when everybody bolted for either the Big Ten or the ACC. They were the only two teams left. So they had to scramble to field a schedule over the last couple of years because they lost all those conference games. Washington State finished this year at 6-6. They played a much tougher schedule. And, when you look at the power ratings of the teams they played versus the teams that Utah State played, there's no comparison. But when you look at the actual schedule, that's where it really comes into play of how tough of a time Washington State had. They had a stretch this year where they played 4 out of 5 games on the road. It was in the middle of the season. And that included back-to-back road games. Think where Washington State is, the great Northwest. They had to travel in back-to-back weeks to play SEC Ole Miss. And then the very next week, they had to play ACC Virginia. Now, I know we made fun of the ACC this year, but still, that's a big step up. And what'd they do? They were a 33-point dog at Ole Miss. They only lost by 3. Sure, Ole Miss probably looked past them. Then they played Virginia the very next week. You would think Virginia wouldn't look past them after they almost gave Ole Miss a scare. 16-point favorite. They only lose by 2. This is a team that's played well all year. They also traveled to James Madison, who's actually playing in the playoffs. They were a 15-point dog to James Madison and only lost by 4 on the road. So given everything they've done, I'm going to look to them. Oh, wait, now we got another thing, another problem for Washington State. Their head coach, Jimmy Rogers, unexpectedly bolted to Iowa State. Why? Well, because that job opened up late because Penn State finally hired somebody and took the Iowa State coach away, Matt Campbell. So that job opened up and he took it. So now you've got a team without their head coach. Another reason to go against them. And I think that's why we're seeing the line where it is. Nobody thinks this team has a shot. I've seen it too often in the bowl games where the teams rally around the interim coach. And the interim coach isn't getting the job. So it's not like they're playing for him to have the job because they've already hired somebody that'll take over after the bowl game. But it is a spot where if they like the coach, they're going to play hard for him in the interim role. I'm going to go ahead and take Washington State. They have the better defense. They've played the tougher schedule, and we're getting points. And if you've watched Bet on It at all in the last few years, you know that is a recipe I love. Give me Washington State. They win this one outright. I'll take that 2.5. Oh, I got to tell you about what we got. Sorry. Yeah. I pulled a Kelly and forgot about promoting.
Whoa, that's not very nice, Marco.
Put me on the naughty list with Santa Claus. This is a spot where we've got the same deal that VR's got. It was a great response last week to it. And guys, we're rolling along. Bowl games last year went 9-4. We kicked off the bowls this season, had another winner last night, easy winner. We had the under on the Tuesday night bowl game, Jackson State. And this is a spot where join us. We're going to have plenty of action. NFL, I didn't have a 5% last week. Came very close. Our top play was a 4% in the NFL last week on Baltimore. That was an easy winner. We're looking at the card. There's a couple games shaping up that might make it to the 5% status. I'll update that later in the week. But if you jump on board, you can get a full calendar year, 365 days. Now, the regular price is $19.99, but we've got a special offer for both VR and myself. You can get it. Use the secret link that is for Bet On It people. Go to wt.buzz/Marco365. You'll get the full 365 days for $1,188. Aces is the same link except /Ace365. Pick up both of us. What a 1-2 punch you can have for all of 2026. Ring in the new year with winners.
Marco,
that's it, Kelly.
I know. It was my favorite when I did that for Crack. On Monday, we do a show called KIV and Crack. If you guys haven't checked it out, he goes, "We're doing what?" He goes, "We're giving it away for how much?" He goes, "I used to charge that for 2 months." I said, "Crack, I don't do not get mad at me. I'm live on the show. I am really sorry." So anyway, that should tell you how good of a deal it is. And here's a game that I bet early. And so I'm going to give it out as my best bet this week. And I know a lot of people are on the opposite side. I mean, that's fine. I know it's tough to beat a team twice, let alone 3 times, because that's what Oklahoma's done. They had an upset win over Alabama in the last 2 seasons, including that 23-21 road win in Tuscaloosa as almost a touchdown underdog back on November 15th. But here's going to be the argument for all the Alabama bettors. Alabama outgained Oklahoma by 196 yards in that game, had a 23-12 edge in first downs, and held a 1.2 yards per play advantage. So they're going to say, oh, well, we outplayed them and should have covered. Now we're going to figure it out the second time around. But I think as an Oklahoma bettor, I'm going to say, well, Alabama gave them their best shot and still couldn't win. And John Mateer is not all that healthy. But, hey, neither is Ty Simpson. Both of these guys down the stretch have not been impressive. So the deal breaker here, last year's edition of the College Football Playoff, 12 teams, opening round on campus. All 4 teams won by double digits. So that also applies, if you guys remember, to the first game I gave you guys, Texas A&M, and an average margin of victory, 19.3 points per game. This point spread is essentially a pick 'em. It keeps going back and forth, but I think the difference maker will be special teams. And if you remember, Oklahoma's got a little guy named Tate Sandell who won the Lou Groza Award. That means he actually makes his field goals, guys. I do think Brent Venables getting some extra prep time for his defense to play this Alabama team is going to be the difference maker in this one. Give me Oklahoma as my best bet for the opening round of the College Football Playoff. All right, guys, that was our short version of Bet On It for the not only College Football Playoff, but the additional bowl games. We're going to be back next Tuesday. We're recording early. Maybe Marco Claus is going to make an appearance. Maybe he's not. I don't know. He's getting too skinny. That suit might not fit him anymore. It might not fill it in nicely. I don't know. At least wear the hat for us, Marco. You can do it. But shout out to all of you guys for hanging out with us for the entire college football season here on Bet On It. And of course, if you guys are looking for that NFL edition, it's going to be right here. Mega show. And of course, Marco's Deli will be up Friday per usual.